Hey students, this is a video to show you how to complete assignment 4.1. I'm going to give you a little bit of overview about it. A lot of this information is based on the QBE funding formula, which I took from a document produced by the state of Georgia, and it's called the FTE Data Collection Program Codes and Weights, and this was Dr. Barge from 2013. And I haven't seen the later version, but sometimes they don't update it all the time. They kind of will keep this going for a few years, and they'll update it after a while, after pressure. Notice the various weights for each category or program. There's various types of programs that are taught in a public school, and you can see those as you see here. And then there's also the special education weights that also come into play, and some other things like that. Now notice, going back up here to this one, I want you to pay attention to this one. The basic weight right here is 1, and so if whatever the funding is, so if the funding is basically this number here, see that 1, you will look at what I've looked up for you is the basic funding for a student for a particular day is $2,725. But of course they're going to divide that day into 6 segments. So depending on where the student is during the day, that's what he will get. Now if you multiply the weight of 1 for the 9 through 12 grades times that amount, that's exactly what you get, is $2,725 per day for a 9th grade student, or 10th or 11th or 12th grade student. But notice that these other weights, they will take that same figure of 2,725 and multiply it times this, and that's what they will come up with for the kindergarten weight and so forth. So every year that little figure right there might change depending on the legislators and what they decide to do with how much money they're going to give each of the districts and so forth based on this particular weight. Now look what I've done here. This student, this is an example of a student. I took that amount of 2,725. There's 6 segments, and I divided it by 6 segments, and so each segment gets or each class that the student takes that day will get 454, or depending on what type of class it is. Well, this student in this particular class, in math, he gets the basic weight of 1 times the segment, and that's going to be the figure that he gets. But notice he takes a vocab computer, vocational computer class. He takes that, the 5th segment. Well, it gets a little bit more weight, and I can find that by looking over here and trying to find out what vocational lab. See, it's program K. So that one's going to get a little bit more weight. So I multiplied that number times 1.1837 times, I multiplied it times the number here, if you see right here, there it is, times this number, and then I divided it by 6, and I came up with a little bit more weight for that vocational class. So the vocational class brought in a little bit more money, that segment, than the other basic segments of biology, English, math, and PE. Now what I want you to do is look, and we're going to stop and look at a student here. Here's a student named Raleigh. She attends middle school, so we're going to use program code 9 because this is a 6th to 8th grade school. So I want to show you how the weight is going to be determined, and we're going to put in the weight and multiply it times the base right here and come up with what that segment would earn. Now, the way we're going to do this is we're going to look at the various weights for middle school. Middle school has 2 different program codes. There's a program H and there's a program 9. Now, and there you'll see program 9 coming up somewhere around here, I think. Not really sure where it is. There you'll see program, it's called program 9. And then you also see, and it gets a little bit less weight than the real program called the middle school program at this one. So what's the difference between the 2 programs? One program meets the guidelines that are set up for a true middle school, which is Rule 164.2.05 middle school program criteria right here. If you read that, it's a little bit different. It's program code H. So we can use either one for this example, but let's go ahead and use 9 and say this was just a regular middle school. And so I'm going to say use program code 9 for this one. So now I'm going to find out what the weight would be for math. So I go over here and I'm looking here, and it's going to be 1.016. So I take the weight of that B code B, program code B for this middle school student. I take the 1.016 times the base amount, which is what is funded in 2012 or 13. It was 2725.04, and I'm going to multiply that and come up with how much that weight would be. So if you notice, I multiplied it out and I got 2,768.67 cents. So that's how much weight a middle school program brings in compared to a regular high school program. Not much difference, about maybe $50 more per student. But now that's how much they get per day. I've got to find out, all right, what is it per segment? There's 6 segments in an FTE count, so now I'm going to divide this figure here by 6 and come up with how much weight this class right here is going to get. Okay, so I've divided that number by 6, and I came up with $461.45. That was the weight times the 2725, and I came up with a little bit higher number, and I divided by 6, and that becomes the new number that I'm going to put here. So I'm going to put this number right here, or this figure, I'm going to put it right here. Now that's what they got for that segment. Well, this class is the same thing, so they're going to get the same amount of money for that segment, for social studies, for PE, not for gifted science, and then for band. So I can copy all of these in because I know they're the same weight. But now what we're going to do is we're going to look and find out, well, what is the weight for a gifted science class? Does it bring in more weight? Well, let's look and see. Okay, notice I've got my chart again, and there's gifted education. It's program I, and it has a 1.6695 weight. Okay, notice what I did here. I took the weight of the gifted class. The gifted science class was 1.6695. That's pretty good. Times the base amount that they're funding this year was 2725.07, gave us a total for if that student were to go the whole day in a gifted science class, this system would earn $4,549. But she only goes to the gifted class one segment, so I divided that by 6, and so that segment became 758.25. So I'm going to highlight that, and I'm going to copy it and place it right here. So now that's what that student earned, and this is the weight that that class brought. So that goes in here, and now I can then look at the total funding. So if I wanted to add up, let me see if I can get rid of that stupid control thing. All right, there it left. So now if I added up all these segments, I could come up with a total figure for how much money this child brought in that year for that particular class. Now, it may be for the whole day. I think that's how it works. It's a day. So let me look at that. Okay, so I multiplied, or I added up all these, and I came up, these figures here, I came up with $3,065 that student brought into that system for that total year. So that's how much money is being given for that particular student. They do each individual student, every FTE count, they'll come up with all the students, and for every segment that they've gotten or they've taken, they will determine what they're bringing in, or the cost that it takes to educate that student for that day, and that's what the state will give the district for every student they have. If they have 35,000 students just like this, then they multiply 35,000 students times 3,065, and they get that amount of money. It's a very complicated formula, but that helps you anyway, I hope. Now you're going to do the same thing using that same chart here and that figure that I gave you right up there at the top, but the charts are each, you have to look at the different programs that the student's involved in. This student here is a high school student. Notice you have to look up the various topics he's taken. Watch out for the gifted here. So he's got 2 gifted classes. And then you're going to find out what the weight is. And then you're going to get 1/6 of the weight times the base. Remember, the base is always going to be this figure right here that I told you earlier. It's that's the state base for this school year, or for 2013. It's probably the same. And then you'll figure out the total for this student. And then I want you to do the total for this student named Lori, who's a 5th grader. And notice she's got a disability, so watch out for how the category is determined and what the weight might be. Remember, you're going to use this entire chart right here and the lower weights down here to help you determine what actual weight the category might bring for that particular student. Now, I hope that helps you. That's just a little video I tried to help you with.